It only takes one thing. Emailing one person, asking the big question, can I please borrow your money from you? Saying yes, as opposed to saying no, has made all the difference in my life. So take those risks and say yes. Says a lady who is right now CEO and co-founder of Forge, a company that aims to create a new relationship between employers and employees. And she was truly smiling during the whole presentation we just experienced. Because her story is without a doubt unique. Ladies and gentlemen, Stacey Ferreira. Welcome, Stacey. Are millennials screwed?
Yep.
Are we screwed?
You know, some people think that we are, and in fact, if you type into Google, "Are millennials screwed?" it's actually one of the first search results that comes up. So some people out there definitely think we are, but I don't think so.
Let's listen to her story, because you will find out that the ways in life could be pretty tricky if you know what you want to do. Stacey.
Thank you. How's everyone doing today? Good? This has been amazing. So I have a question for all of you. What do you want to be when you grow up? This is a question that everyone asks, especially folks that tend to be a little bit older. They ask folks that are younger, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this is a question that I was asked a lot as a young girl, and I didn't like this question. And there were three main reasons why I didn't like the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? The first is because that question implies that grown up is a finite state. Like once you turn 30 years old or 40 years old, you're grown up, and guess what? You've got to have it all figured out. And I just didn't believe that that was true. The second reason that I didn't like this question is because it also implies that you can really only be one thing. What do you want to be when you grow up? As if when I grow up, there's only one option and I can only be this one thing, and I train my entire life to be this one thing, and that is the response that people expect when they ask me the question, what do you want to be? And then the third reason why I hated this question was because I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. So when people would ask me, I would say, yeah, you know, I'm not really sure. I don't know how to answer that question. And this is a question that I've been thinking about a lot, and my parents came to me at a young age and said, you know, Stacey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I went back to them and I said, you know, I'm not 100% sure, but there are a lot of things that I want to learn. There are a lot of things that I'm interested in. And I was extremely fortunate to have parents who both worked for a company called IBM, and so they got a good discount on this computer that was the very first computer that I had growing up. And my parents brought home this computer one day, and they put it in a room that we called the computer room, because at the time there was a dedicated room for that. And my parents said, okay, Stacey, you and your brother, my brother Scott, who's 2 years older than me, you both can have 30 minutes a day to spend playing on this computer and exploring things and doing the whole thing. And at the time, I was really excited by this because I was a young girl, and I remember we would get these DVDs, or these CDs actually, mailed to us, and then I would go and put the CD in the computer, and up would pop this computer game, and for 30 minutes every day, I would get to sit at the computer and play this computer game. And as time went on, technology kept evolving, and rather than getting those CDs and putting it in the computer, realized, okay, there's this thing called the internet that's pretty cool, and with the internet, you can go and you can search online and find all these new and unique things that you want to explore. So I would sit at the computer and then go to Google and type in things that I was interested in and kind of learn. And one day, my brother and I were sitting down talking to each other, and we were like, you know, this internet thing is pretty cool, and these games that we play are also pretty cool. What would it take for us to build our own computer game? And so my brother and I sat there and we're like, well, we think that we're like gonna have to learn how to code if we want to build a computer game. And the internet was great for this because we just went to Google and we typed in how to code, and all these resources popped up. Oh, you can learn HTML, you can learn CSS, you can learn JavaScript, you can learn PHP. And my brother and I started then taking our time, rather than playing the computer games, we started using our computer time to say, how can we learn how to build our own? So in middle school and high school, my brother and I taught ourselves how to code. And it started off building little websites for friends and family. And eventually that passion kind of turned around to us, and we started talking to each other about, okay, we're building all these websites for friends and family. Well, what happens if we wanted to just build something ourselves? What if we just came up with our own idea and we wanted to go build this thing? And my brother at the time had a computer crash where basically everything on his computer got wiped out. And I remember sitting on the edge of his bed one night, and he was going after his computer crash, and once he got a new computer, entering in usernames and passwords and resetting usernames and passwords for everything that he was visiting online, all his websites that he had. And we said, why don't we just build a website that allows people to store all their usernames and passwords online and allows people to log into everything with just one username and password? Because a lot of people have passwords for things. Back then it was Friendster and MySpace, and now it's Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all these other things that you have passwords for. So we said, why don't we just build a website that does this? And at the time, the expectation from my parents was not that my brother and I were going to go start this website. It was that we were going to go get internships after I graduated from high school. So my brother and I went to our parents and we said, hey, we've got this idea. We want to go build this website that allows people to store their usernames and passwords. Rather than getting an internship for a large company, can we go build this instead for the summer? And my dad came back to us and he was like, love the entrepreneurial spirit, but if you want to start a business, you need to learn how to be financially independent, so you need to move out of the house and do it if you want to. So my brother and I start talking to each other, and we're like, all right, moving out of the house, how bad can it be, right? And our motto at the time was, let's just get outside of our comfort zone. How bad can it be? If we fail at making this website, we can always move home, right? So what's the worst that can happen? So my brother and I decided to pack up our bags. We had a friend who was living in South Central Los Angeles in California who had just gotten his master's in security, and we decided that the three of us were going to team up in LA to go and start this business. So my brother and I moved to LA and rented out a 2-bedroom apartment, and one of the rooms we actually rented to another fellow because it was expensive for us at the time, but we knew that for the 1 bedroom, it was $450 per month. My brother and I were like, we can split that for $225, rent out the other room, and we can do this for 3 months in the summer in between high school and college. So we hunkered down in this 2-bedroom apartment and started building my social cloud, which was the website to store all these usernames and passwords. And as we were building the first prototype of my social cloud, I was also looking at how can we spread the word on this thing that we're building? How can we see if other people have the same pain point that we have? And one day I was on Twitter, and I saw a tweet come through my feed from Richard Branson. And how many people here, by show of hands, know who Richard Branson is? Okay, so most of you. So he started the Virgin Group, for anyone that doesn't know. It's a conglomerate that owns a lot of other companies. But I saw a tweet from him that said, enjoy intimate cocktails plus 2 parties with me in Miami. Donate $2,000 to charity. And then if you see the tweet below that, it gave an email address. And at this time, I saw this come through my Twitter feed, and I was 18 years old, so I took the email address and I went to Gmail and I said, hi, my name is Stacey Ferreira. I'm 18 years old, so legally I'm not able to drink cocktails with you. However, I would love to come to Miami and meet you and learn how you grew your businesses. So I stay up all night and get an email back later that night from his secretary who says, great, if you can donate $2,000, then you can, and be in Miami in 48 hours, then you can come meet Branson and ask him all the questions that you want. And I was like, okay, that's great. Can I bring my brother? And they were like, yes, but that's $4,000 if you want two of you to come. And at the time, I was sitting there in this two-bedroom apartment where we had rented out one of the rooms, getting ready to be a broke college kid whose parents just told me I needed to move out of the house and learn how to be financially independent. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a situation where I really felt like I needed the $4,000 to go and learn. This was an opportunity to put myself in a room with someone who had been there and done that, doing the things that I wanted to do for myself in my own career. So I did the only thing that I could think of to do at the time, which was call mom and dad. And I said, hey, I know that you told me to be financially independent, but there is this amazing opportunity to go meet Richard Branson in Miami and learn from him. But in order to do that, I need to borrow $4,000. My dad, on the other end of the phone, being the businessman that he is, comes back to me and he said, write up a proposal for me. Why do you need this money? Where is this money going? And most importantly, I want an Excel spreadsheet of the payment plan of how you plan to pay me back over time. Now remember, the clock is ticking down. I've got 48 hours not only to borrow this money, donate it, and then fly to Miami, which United States geography is on the other side of the country from California, where I was at the time. So I stay up all night writing this proposal for my dad, and I send it out to him. And he gives me a call the next morning, and he says, Stacey, here's the deal. I will loan you the $4,000 with the one stipulation that you have to pay me back in 3 months. I don't care how you do it, you've got to pay me back in 3 months. By the time that you step foot on college campus, you've got to pay me back. He said, or you don't take the deal. It's a lesson in money management. So me, being the young, optimistic person that I am, I said, okay, great. We're going to take the money and we'll go to Miami. So long story short, we ended up borrowing the money from my dad, flew out to Miami, and met with Branson in a room of just a few other folks. And perhaps one of the things that struck me the most about this event was when we got there, I had asked his secretary, how many opportunities did you have for people to be here, to be able to be in the same room and ask questions from Branson? And she said that they had 25 slots open. But the thing that struck me the most was I went around and counted the room, and there were only 18 people there. Granted, $4,000, $2,000 per person is a lot of money. It was a short time frame, 48 hours, to be there. It was, for some people, all the way across the country. But to me, it was one of the best learning opportunities that you could have, to learn from someone who is operational, who's actually built companies before, rather than someone who sits in a classroom and talks to you about, theoretically, how to do it. So that kind of struck me. And while we were there, we went around the room of 18 people, and we talked about who we were and why we were there and the projects that we were interested in and the things that we were working on. And my brother and I shared our idea around my social cloud and allowing people to be able to store their usernames and passwords. And after that event where we all went around and kind of talked about who we were, I remember the one outcome that my brother and I had, the one goal that we wanted from that event, was simply to get Branson's email address. It was not to ask him for an investment up front. It was not to just ask a few questions and then leave. It was, how can we build a sustained relationship with this guy that we want to learn from? Let's just get his email address. So after we went around the room and talked about who we were, my brother and I went straight up to him and we said, can we have your email address? And he wrote it down on a piece of paper and handed it to us. And I'll never forget, because my brother then took that piece of paper and ran over to his secretary and was like, is this really his email address? And she was like, it is. And it's not the one that gets filtered through me, so keep it close. And my brother and I went back to Los Angeles and felt more motivated than ever, not only because had we taken an opportunity and we had felt at the time that it had paid off. We had not only learned a lot, but we had made a valuable connection that we could go back to and use as a resource later on in our career. So we went back to LA and continued working on my social cloud. And when the time came, we sent Branson an email and we said, here's kind of a list of questions that we have for you. We've built this product, we've launched it, we've gotten our first couple of thousand users on the platform. We really want to take this thing to the next level. How do you think we should take this thing to market? How should we think about scaling it? And he sent an email back to us and he said, you're asking the right questions, but you should really go talk to my friend Jerry Murdoch, who runs Insight Venture Partners, which is a venture capital firm in the United States. He said, Jerry knows a lot about this. So he made the introduction to Jerry. And just a few weeks later, Jerry got on a plane and he flew out to California, where my brother and I and our co-founder Shiv Prakash were all working on this idea. And Jerry spent an entire day with us, drilling us on questions about, again, who we were, what's this business idea that you have, how do you plan to scale this thing, what are your ideas of scaling, what's the underlying technology behind this, and you're 18 years old. What are you doing not in college? We answered all of these questions, and Jerry took us out to dinner that night, and Jerry said, not dissimilar to my dad, I have a deal for you. He said, 2 options. The first is, I spoke to Branson, and the 2 of us would love to invest $1.2 million in your business to help you grow it, to help you scale. The other option is you don't take the deal. So my brother and I kind of sat at the table and looked at each other, and we were like, give us a second, talked a little bit, and we said, all right, we'll take the deal. And in 2011, we accepted the $1.2 million as our first investment in my social cloud to help us grow the business. I'll kind of speed this story along. I know a few of you are probably wondering, did you ever pay your parents back? The answer is yes. That was the first check that we wrote after we got the investment. But the next 2 years after that were an endless cycle of trying, failing, learning, repeating. And this is kind of the way that we approach startups at my social cloud, in the same way that I think about startups today as I'm running Forge. It's this idea that you try, you fail. That failure is a great opportunity to reflect, to learn, and to keep pushing forward. My brother and I built the company over the course of about 2 years, and in 2013, a company called Reputation.com approached us about acquiring the company. In 2013, we sold my social cloud to Reputation.com and moved from the Los Angeles area up to the San Francisco Bay Area to work as a part of Reputation.com's team and integrate our product into a product suite that they were building out called the Consumer Data Vault. And during my time at Reputation, I realized that life, as much as we like to think it's a linear path, it's really not. I had a friend approach me who had an idea for a book. My friend's name was Jared Kleinert, and he said, hey, I'm thinking about publishing a book all about the millennial generation, and in particular, how technology is kind of changing the way that this world works and how this generation operates. And he said, do you have any interest in co-authoring a book with me? Now, my background had nothing to do with publishing, had nothing to do with writing, but I said, that's a really interesting idea. And in my own life, I had lived the fact that you can go out there and be a 20-something and bring something into the world. So I said, yes, my story is not the only one like this. Let's go and highlight hundreds of other stories of young kids across the globe who are doing just that. In 2015, we published our book called 2 Billion Under 20, How Millennials Are Breaking Down Age Barriers and Changing the World. We had a great reception. It's been published not only in English, but a lot of other languages across the globe. And after that book, and after talking to all these young people, I started realizing, again, life is not as linear as we would think. And in fact, not only had I been a technology entrepreneur by the time I was 20 and sold that business, I had also then published a book that I never thought I'd do in my life. And it started getting me to think about what does someone's work trajectory look like? What does that career path look like for people today? And I kind of rewound the clock a little bit, and I started looking back a few generations, and I started looking at my grandma's career. Now, my grandma worked in a factory right out of high school for her, and she worked in that factory for her entire life. She had one job, one employer for her entire life. Kind of speed up the clock a little bit, and you look at my mom's career. Well, my mom has worked for multiple employers. She got an accounting job right out of college and then transitioned to another employer working in accounting again. She took some time off, was unemployed, but that was to raise my brother and I, and then got back into the workforce and worked 2 more jobs. The job that she's working today, she'll probably retire after working it. So in her career, she'll probably work, 4 jobs, 5 jobs before retiring. And you can probably see where I'm going with this, but then you look at me, and you look at my generation, and our careers look something like this, right? I'm 25 years old. I have built and sold my first company. I worked for Reputation.com that acquired my other company. I published a book, and now I'm starting my next company. I serve on the board of a nonprofit, so I've arguably had 5 different companies that I've worked for by 25 years old. So you can kind of see how many jobs I'm going to have over the course of my lifetime. It's a lot. And this is why they call the millennial generation sometimes the slash generation, right? I am an author / entrepreneur / speaker / whatever else. We're notorious for having multiple jobs at once. And this got me kind of thinking even more, and I started looking into the data, and I realized that while some people would say this is a massive inconvenience, think of how much you have to learn and think of how much you have to change and adapt over the course of your lifetime in order to have all these jobs, I started realizing that, guess what? The young generation doesn't really care. And in fact, we thrive in this environment where we have to constantly reinvent ourselves and continually learn. When polled, 81% of millennials said that they wanted flexibility in their work schedule, and a lot of times this flexibility was desired because it gave room for people to learn new things, level up their skills, or just plain old do things that they want to do in life. And this flexibility is something that, as I started thinking about it, I realized there's a real opportunity here. The companies of the future that succeed in attracting the best talent will be the ones that give this generation the ability to truly pick and choose exactly when and where they're working and the skill sets that they're choosing to learn over the course of their career. And so just about 2 years ago, I started my next company called Forge, doing just that. We've built a platform that enables companies to offer that flexibility to their workforce. The way that it works is a company can come into Forge and say, I need someone to do X, Y, and Z job. For example, I need someone to be a cashier at my retail location. And then if I want to have the ability to access that job, I can go through training, see the shifts that are available, book the shift, go work, and get paid, allowing me as the employee to opt in and pick my own schedule, having that truly flexible schedule that caters to the needs of me as an individual who's learning and evolving my career. And of course, Forge is not the only company today that is out there promoting this idea of flexibility. In fact, a lot of companies that you know and are probably more familiar with are doing this. Right? We've got Uber, we've got DoorDash, we've got Amazon Flex. A lot of companies are changing the definition of what it means to work. And I truly believe that it's moving towards a place where you're giving your employees the ability to pick and choose the flexibility of their own life and giving them some agency and autonomy over the things that they learn. So I want to leave you all with a quick question, which is this. Rather than asking people, what do you want to be when you grow up? I challenge each and every one of you, not only to ask this question to young people, but to ask those around you instead, what do you want to explore over the course of your lifetime? What are the things that you want to learn? Not only for now, but for the jobs that you'll have in the future. Thank you.
Do you have the proposal you wrote for your father?
I do. I have it somewhere buried deep in my computer.
Very deep.
Very deep. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I should go back and look at it.
I would love to see it. Would you write it in the very same way today, 7 years later? Would you write it the same way as you did when you were 18?
You know, I think over the course of the past 7 years, I've probably learned a lot. So the proposal would look very different. But I think the important thing that I learned from that proposal is that it never hurts to get your first iteration out there. Had my dad not asked me to write up that very first proposal, I would not be where I am today. I wouldn't be standing here on this stage. So I think just the act of getting that first iteration out and trying something for the first time is the important part.
At any point of your story, were you afraid or even scared?
Afraid and scared. I think that everyone, even all the folks who have stood up on this stage, would be lying if they said that there were times that they were not afraid. I think it's a normal human experience to be afraid. But I think the important thing to just note is if I can do it, so can you. And why not you? So just ask yourself that.
And answer yes to the questions concerning the risk-taking.
Yes.
Stacey Ferreira.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacey.
Thank you.
Thank you.